Vice President J.D. Vance and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller joining yesterday's Charlie Kirk show, with Vance hosting the show, as you heard here yesterday from the executive producer. They detailed how the administration will go after left-wing organizations who are promoting violence following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Earlier in the show, I spoke with the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Rick Crawford, about holding social media accountable for allowing political violence to foment on their platforms.
Are we going to just completely allow social media providers, service providers, to basically have no culpability in any of this? I mean, they provide the platform. Does that mean that they receive, special treatment with no liability? I think that's being revisited. I think the other things that we need to think about are, a full review of what tools are necessary. What tools do we have in the toolbox? We just passed the IAA, the Intelligence Authorization Act, with some pretty serious reforms. We think that will enhance our ability to go after problems like this. It's primarily going after foreign influence, foreign intelligence, and things like that. But where those overlap and intersect, we need to be diligent about rooting those out.
Joining me now is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. He is the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. And Mr. Chairman, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I want to ask you about two things. On the one hand, I'd like to understand the priorities for keeping the homeland safe, given your role and all of this worry now after Charlie Kirk's assassination. But I also want to get your take on Section 330 and whether or not there is going to be movements on making sure social media companies have the same liability that other media companies have with regard to what's on their platforms.
Yeah, with regard to Charlie's death, Kelly and I are obviously still mourning his death. With regard to people making attacks or accusations or, sounding out about committing violence on social media, we're well aware of this. And I was assaulted 6-7 years ago, attacked from behind, had 6 ribs broken and part of my lung removed, and still online on a daily basis, people say they wish that it would happen to me all over again. And by sort of making light of what I suffered, they are encouraging other people to do it. And really, that ought to be taken down, and social media ought to be able to take that down. If people are saying this in their workplace, people say, oh, people have a right to say things. Well, actually, they don't necessarily have a right to say things. Many people have in their contract what we call a morals clause to their contract, or a conduct clause. My guess is you have something in your contract that says you have to behave in a certain way in public. Most people do. If you're in the military, you have a conduct code that you have to adhere to in your speech and the way you present yourself to the public. So I think it is time for this to be a crackdown on people. And like I say, it's perfectly legal and legitimate, particularly if it's part of the contract process.
That's right. And it's unbelievable that it seems that it's always conservatives that are being targeted. What about the groups that are funding it? President Trump talked about RICO potentially with the Soros group.
I think it's worth looking into. Where it leads is another question, and what the actual law is. I'm not an expert on RICO, but I think it's important that what we're trying to get at is action. So, for example, a student was yesterday kicked out, I think it was at Texas Tech University, and they were kicked out, but mainly for assaulting somebody with a sign as opposed to the sign. And I think we have to be wary of where it leads to so it doesn't lead to speech problems, but almost all of these involve actions. And universities also, you don't have entirely free speech, you have a code of conduct. So if your code of conduct says you can't lie in class, but it also says you can't say certain things about people that even the First Amendment might protect. So there are ways of actually making our speech more civil, but they include the contract clause for students, for employment, for joining the military. And I think all of these things should be enforced. And then even beyond that, these people need to be shunned. The people that are saying this, absolutely without question, need to be shunned. And it shouldn't be acceptable in polite society to have these people who think it's fine to justify someone's death.
Let me get your take on Anthony Fauci. You've done so much work on the COVID disaster, Senator, and I want to get your take on whether or not the pardon of Anthony Fauci is legitimate, given the fact that now we know that Biden may not have even known what was going on. And the pardon was written by an auto pen.
Yeah, we tried for 4 years to get records from the Biden administration. They resisted us. Finally, the Trump administration came in and Secretary Kennedy, and they've given us a lot of information now. And what we've discovered is that Anthony Fauci was destroying federal records and was encouraging other people to destroy federal records. That is a crime. He testified to the House a year ago and said he wasn't doing that. That's a crime to perjure himself. And so we will bring him back. I've asked him to come and testify this fall. If he doesn't come voluntarily, we will subpoena him. The question is he immune because of the pardon? I think that needs to be challenged in court. I have encouraged the Trump administration that they should prosecute this case and challenge the auto pen. I don't think the auto pen is sufficient. I also think there were so many pardons that I'm not sure Biden was aware of all the people he did pardon. There's also not a direct link from the person running the auto pen to the president. The person that was running the auto pen never spoke with the president. So I wonder about really the line of communication, whether these are valid. When Obama did this with legislation, he said, I'll be back in a few days and I'll sign it to make sure it's legitimate. And I think a president's signature on something so important as legislation or pardon is absolutely required.
Unbelievable. Senator, thanks for your work on that.